Khalaf is there next to you. Otherwise, I am there. Okay, VG Desai, what changes have taken place in Portugal in family marriage and succession laws since 1961? How far these changes affected by German law? VG Desai, this is a very good question and a very good subject matter for another seminar like this. Whether you can find a sponsor, please tell me. There are changes, no doubt, but it will be a totally a big subject on its own. With Indian law adopting in fact the Portuguese law has changed almost totally. With Indian law adopting the Anglo-Saxon system, is there scope for the continental system given that bureaucracy and legislators have a mindset towards Anglo-Saxon laws? This is from Godfrey Gonzalez. I think that's something you can answer.
I feel that Indian bureaucracy also.
Take the mic.
If India is going to be the superpower for tomorrow, you just visualize India in the next 25 years, and our students are going to Europe. We already got our feedback in our Salgonga Law College. Students are going to Europe. They are coming with ideas. They are practicing in international courts where the things are totally different. You don't draft the way we draft. They draft a complex drafting based on the French models and so on. The students are already exposed. I think bureaucracy also, the whole Indian bureaucracy will have to fall in line if India is going to be the superpower. If we are going to catch up, China has started. We should take a lesson from China. China sending their students to all European countries, teaching them languages as well as law in European countries. Coimbra is full of them, Lisbon is full of them, France is full of them. Chinese supported by the government. India is lacking behind. We have to take up both systems. We can't close the system. And we can't forget our old Hindu system too.
Thank you. Advocate Mildred Mendonça, if the Portuguese Civil Code is so foresighted or farsighted, I don't know, with uniformity of the nations and its people, female empowerment, etc., why has logic been defied by keeping it in a very crippled form? I think the speakers here have expressed that the Portuguese Civil Code, as it contained in view of the Transfer of Properties Act and other acts, Contract Act, so many other acts, there have been national acts being enforced. You know, that much of the code has been decimated. Please.
The Portuguese Civil Code is comparatively progressive in the past. Today, the Hindu law also has come up to a certain level. Almost. There are few exceptions in the Hindu law which have not been done, where you can see gender bias, female succession, male succession in Hindu law. But otherwise, it has come almost to a standard. So what we see is, we don't say the Portuguese code is the most progressive today in the world, but it is progressive compared to an earlier situation in India. But if you take the family laws of India as a total, then I think that Goa law is much progressive over the component of family law of India, which we teach in our college. When we teach Portuguese law at the side of Hindu law, Muslim law, Parsi law, this thing, we see the confusion and we see the superiority of Portuguese.
If you could answer this question, who is a Goan and why?
This is the most complex question. I think some people are going for advice to advocates, and I wouldn't love to answer this question because it's a very complex question, and there are different opinions even on that also. Who's the Goan, and to whom the law applies? You can go to that regulations, administration act, ordinance, and do some study. But that other is a very complex question.
Under the Goa Legislators citizenship order, there is some kind of attempted definition. According to me, a Goan would be one whose parents or grandparents were born in Goa. That is, if you look up the Goa Legislators citizenship order.
I can perceive the confusion in a Goan's mind today. Because so many people here and now we don't know whether we are born or we are born. I think there's a question here without a name. Why can't we identify the basis of existing code, understand the code, then make a proper complete code without disturbing the formula? Right. That's what most of the speakers suggested this today. Looks like a girl's writing, but no name. Admittedly, the code is not in force in the country of its birth, which is Portugal. Why should Goans stick to it? Whether the amended code is in force elsewhere in Portuguese colonies, if so, where? Advocate R.M. Rodriguez.
Why have the first part of the question?
If admittedly the code is not in force in the country of its birth, they mean 1857, but other codes have come. Why should Goans stick to it? Whether the amended code is in force elsewhere in Portuguese colonies.
In Portugal, the law was changed in 1966. The basic pictures remained. Then again in 1977 there were more changes. And in 1979 there were still more changes. For instance, in Goa, you have the concept of, unless you have a prenuptial agreement where you declare that you are marrying under the regime of separation of assets, the presumption is every Goan married here without a prenuptial deed is presumed to have got married under the regime of communion of interest and assets. In Portugal, it is, the rule is separation of assets and not comunhão de bens. Now all over the world, there is equality between men and women. Now the Code of Seabra of 1867 was meant for those days when in Europe they were going on horse carriages and horseback, and in Goa on the bullock carts. Therefore, Portugal has changed to keep it in tune with modernity. Now, take for instance, Macau. Just before the Chinese took over, in 1999, they made a code and simplified and went one better even over the modern Portuguese law. It is the Code of Macau 1999.
I think that there's a question on Mr. D. Naik there, whether non-Goans having come settle here for many years, whether the children become eligible to this law. But just now, Putnath has given the definition of who is a Goan. I think that should answer that.
In the bill, there have been some definitions, and they take within its sweep those who have been domiciled here for long years.
And now,
the exact number of years.
Plus, your question was the first, but still I'm taking the last, because at the bottom part what I can read is that the question should be kept for the next session. So I'm keeping it for the next session. Alright?
Because I am here, maybe in what number, just to clarify things. I am a member OST of the first law commission of Government Review in 1968-71.
What is the question? What is the question?
Made a report. Till 1998, when the Goa Foundation published a report in January 1998, all laws are there, pre-Portuguese, post-Portuguese, of Pandashiri, of Kazanaka Entity.
Could you give us a copy of that?
Yes.
Could you give us a copy of
yes,
that?
Of course.
We will be obliged. Because the copy that I have seen is only laws that are post-liberation.
No, we have made the full job. the speaker.
We would be very obliged if you give us.
Our chairman. Sit with and not decide.
Is there any other question?
In 1971, he comes to clarify even that Mr. Bell told about that. In
No, please, because we have to go into the next section. No, just wait a moment. But the only thing, whether there is any question.
Yes,
Because as far as what you have talked about the Goa Foundation, we would be obliged if you give us the copy, and we will benefit from it. Thank you very much. And you have that second question. I'll keep it to the next speaker. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
I don't want just to be a part of the magister diction. I want to give my own sincere opinion.
To make a further shortcut, on behalf of the Goa Legislators Forum, we thank the moderator as well as the faculty here, and as a token of appreciation, we would like to present them these mementos. Professor Karmo said, you are not practicing, so we are giving you a bag. When you retire, start your practice. Thank you very much. I think we would request you to leave the dais. Can you all please call the next session?
On behalf of all of us here, I thank Professor Dr. Karmo D'Souza and Advocate Putna for a wonderful job. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear a round of applause for them from Pune University. He is a diploma in business management in St. Xavier's from St. Xavier's, Bombay, ex-president of the North Goa District Association, executive member of the Bar Council of the Maharashtra and Goa, speaks very fluently Portuguese, English, French and Konkani, has collaborated in translation of first 2 volumes of the family laws published by Advocate Manohar Usgaonkar. He is an environmental activist and a member of the Goa Environmental Action Group. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause to them, please. May I request Professor Goretti to hand over to give to them as a precision of Allah bouquets, which is a language of expressing our love. Over to you, moderator, sir. Your attention please before the moderator takes over. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an announcement. After this session, we are going to have the lunch will be served just in front of the entrance of this auditorium. Our post-lunch sessions are going to be in the next building that is across the road behind. And we will be starting the session immediately after lunch there.
We are now taking up the subject Goa Succession, Special Studies and Inventory Proceedings Bill, a critical appreciation of the bill. You might be aware that sometimes back the same bill was sought to be introduced in the Assembly, and there was a select committee appointed by the Assembly to go into the bill and suggest suitable changes. And at that stage, in 2005, a detailed study was conducted, a seminar was also held by the District Forum, and a detailed note was presented to the select committee, and we were assured that the points brought out therein will be taken into consideration. But now we find that the same bill has been reintroduced with only the year change on the bill. Mr. Anton Lobo, who is a member of the Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, had at that stage made an in-depth study on the proposed bill and the existing laws that were in force. And he had also submitted a paper then. That is why he is in a better position now to give a critical appreciation of the proposed bill vis-a-vis the civil code. Now, in the circulation that has been made, I have also circulated a small note regarding notaries. You are aware that there are several acts which have been enacted in Goa after the liberation, and some of the provisions of this new act, for example, the Notaries Act 1952, and the provisions in the Civil Code overlap. So when we are thinking of doing some changes in the existing law, we have to also take into consideration the wishes of the common man, the benefits that the common man will get in case the changes are effected. I now call upon Mr. Anton Mogo to give his critical appreciation of the subject.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without any further ado, I will go into my paper so that we can save time. As can be seen from the heading of the bill, the subject matter which it seeks to deal with and regulate is the law governing successions and its procedural aspects, which are governed under the Civil Procedure Code 1939, and in an inventory proceeding, besides some special notaries' functions and duties. In this paper, I shall only deal with the part concerning succession and inventory proceeding. Though, however, I fail to understand why it is that in this bill, Part 3 has been devoted to special notaries. Portions of the subject dealt with in this part, which specifically refer to wills, is the subject of the Civil Code and would not be out of place in the translation or the reworking of the code. Please note the words reworking of the code. There have been questions posed here why it is that there seems to be a misconception that some of us are supporting the code as it existed. This is a misconception. As all the speakers have been at pains to underline, a law has to be dynamic. We want a law in Goa which will incorporate the present realities, which will also keep whatever it is that is in existence and which is fruitful there. We also want a comprehensive law which will include the law of marriages, which will include the law of divorce, which will include the law of guardianship, and perhaps, if it is found necessary, and I think it's a felt need, that adoptions also could be incorporated, which is something which is missing at the moment. As we are aware, the Civil Code encompasses within its ambit laws which govern or regulate, amongst other things, the citizenship of an individual and his/her rights, including the principles governing private international law, guardianship, rights over property, including the transfer, limitations of regulating the acquisition or loss of such rights, mortgages, marriage, gift, etc. With the extension of many central laws such as Transfer of Property Act, the Indian Limitation Act, the Indian Easements Act, Civil Procedure Code 1908, etc., many provisions of the Civil Code and of the Civil Procedure Code, though not all, which have corresponding provisions in the said Indian Acts, stand repealed today.